Hello, this is the Tombigbee Tales podcast. I'm Shannon Evans, and I write about a small town in North Mississippi called Columbus. Today, I'm here with a member of my Tombigbee Tales team, and we're just going to sit around and enjoy an adult beverage and talk about um, the things going on at the CVB and our questions that we're just kicking around, and you can see how we start doing our research. So, partner, what questions are you kicking around
Hello.
tonight?
Well, I am still very puzzled over a couple of things. Number one, I feel that there is really no lack of accountability or requirement for the director of the CVB and the CCHF. It depends on very nebulous things. And I don't see this when you have a large project with a lot of moving parts and a lot of money. There should be very specific requirements that the director of this would be called upon to do, and also would be reviewed on a regular basis. In other words, the person could not just get the job and do whatever whenever, but there would be a list of tasks and where are you on the task in a project management style.
Yeah, well, some of the things that I've looked at is it's that I keep going back to the fact that there doesn't seem to be a very substantial job description, much less a job expectation. I mean, it's supposed to be about attracting tourism and conventions and things like that to Columbus, and yet all I've seen in her job performance is that she's out shaking hands like she's the Chamber of Commerce. So it just seems to be a lot of busy public behaviors, but nothing that would get measurable results. What's your thought on that?
Correct. Well, I would agree that that would be part of the director's job, would be to be visible. I would not disagree at all. But the problem is, you are correct. I have yet to see a job description. I have yet to see a mission statement, or I believe they call it core mission values. We know that the bottom line is bring more people into Columbus for tourism. And that should be specific and measurable. And I don't see that at all. What I see is a lot of money spent on advertising, but I don't know what that advertising gives in return. And normally, if you are spending this kind of money on advertising, and these should be substantial companies, then it would be a requirement to have data analytics. For example, you put a ad in, and I know they've used Garden and Gun, which would be definitely a legitimate, high-end, very professional company that would be able to provide you with the analytics. Who saw these ads? What was the return on the investment? What type of person sees this ad? There's many different things that you can measure to say, was this a good spend of the money? And another piece that I think is not brought up is the fact that these companies, the reason why you pay so much to put your ad in these companies is because part of their job is to give you that. So if the CVB is spending all this money on these very high-end marketing advertising, whether it's print or whether it's television or radio or whatever they use, if they have not asked for this data, then that's on them. And yet, once again, here we are back at transparency. Where are the contracts? What are they doing? We don't know.
Well, and that leads me back to what one of my questions is that, when you go to an agency or an organization like this and you place an ad, what was your agreement? Was your agreement that you created the ad and then they ran it and with some parameters because they have, a certain aesthetic to keep for their readership? But was the board involved with approving that ad? what did that look like? And there's not a lot of transparency across the whole unit. But having sat through a couple of their board meetings now, it's literally they have a jam-packed agenda, and those people have full-time jobs. They're not getting paid to be on a board. It's not like the light and water department where you're getting paid to be there for 3 or 4 hours. They're in, they get their job done, and by habit, because of the previous board, it was a rubber stamp board. I think the new board is currently changing that, and that makes Nancy Carpenter very uncomfortable. You can watch her try and juggle the answers and the information, and while the board is asking for transparent behaviors, it's out of habit for her to not be transparent, and so it's a very uncomfortable situation, and it's almost adversarial because you're not getting a straight answer. And so it's going to be very interesting to see um how she adapts to the expectations of transparency, and how they pull these things together and going in the future. And because we're coming into a brand new cycle, it's a brand new year. She's only got a 6-month contract. Is she going to follow up with these kinds of things and actually invest in making sure she um gets that kind of information back to the board, or if she's going to continue to just obfuscate and never provide it, and we're just going to have to wait till the next board or till the next person's hired. Is this a learning process? Are they going to figure out that what they need going forward? It's all very interesting to me to sit and watch.
I agree about the dynamics, because in most boards, you have people who are subject matter experts. For example, if there is someone on the board that has experience with print media, they would work with the director to see the contract, to see what they need to provide, what, for example, Garden and Gun is going to provide, all of that. And I don't see that.
Oh, you mean a working board, in other words?
Right.
They have tasks
I think
they have tasks and things to accomplish beyond what the lawyer does. He's paid, by the way, so he's not doing this out of the goodness of his heart.
Right, and that's well enough. But if you're going to sit on this board, are there some expectations that you are going to be required to contribute, your time and talent, because the way it's structured now, there's a lot of moving parts, and she seems to want to be in control of all of the moving parts. And frankly, that's a recipe for disaster for anything. And yet it goes back to, once again, we have no idea of what the specific measurements are for this director. Is she required to, for example, increase tourism 3% year over year? Is she required to decrease costs 3% year over year? Is she required to renegotiate any of these marketing contracts? Is she required to, bring on one new festival every year? We see nothing that is specific that could be measured in terms of success or not success, or even things that you would perhaps do in stages. For example, this year we can't increase and add another festival, but what we have done is we have sent out feelers in the communities, in the surrounding area, and get feedback from them or go to their meetings or something. So it could be done in steps. It would not have to be something that if we don't do it this year, it doesn't happen at all. But we don't see that, so we don't know.
True. So now I mean, kind of tongue in cheek, I know we've made jokes about them having a grow operation possibly in the Elks Club basement, or do they have dancing competitions upstairs. What's driving up the electric bill? Because it's going up. I mean, I know that our rates have gone up here, but they've not gone up that much. I mean, wouldn't you just cut off the water in a building and not have to, I mean, you just run the minimal heat and
Right. One of the things that is concerning is I remember in the past, and for a residential building, and I don't know if you would have to do it for this, but insurance companies don't like to insure empty buildings, and they may be keeping the utilities on, but it seems the utility is as though the building is being used, and yet no one's in there. So for example, if it has central air, which I don't know if it does or not, but is it set at 78? Is the water shut off into the building to prevent any sort of leaks or danger? Why are they, is there a water bill? And if so, why are they paying one?
well, I tell you what,
If so, why are they paying?
There was a window open yesterday when I went by. It was open about 6 or 8 inches. It was on the ground floor. I mean, that's not even a secure building. It's just
Right.
it's inexcusable.
Do they have security cameras at that building?
I don't know. I didn't see any. I didn't see anything that indicated. I mean, it's got a chain across the front doorway area and it says keep out, but that only keeps honest people out.
Correct. I would think they would need security cameras at a very minimum, especially since apparently they have electricity on.
Yeah.
So, they would have to do
and
something.
I would think that would reduce your insurance possibly too.
I would agree, because it isn't, once again, an empty building. Again, it's an empty building.
And why do they rent 2 sizable storage facilities? One's 10 by 25 and one's 10 by 25 and one's 5 by 15, I think. I can't remember the exact, but they rent those every month to the tune of $288 over at the CVB. When, I mean, I'm thinking, geez, you could cut, that's like $3,000 a year or more that you could cut by just storing your stuff in either of those buildings. There's 2 buildings there. The Musselwhite building, which is the old travel and tourism building. Isn't that interesting? They used to have a travel agency there. And then you have and that was like 4,000 square feet. And then the Elks Club's 5,000 square feet. So why are you paying for another 250 square feet plus another whatever, 150 square feet to store stuff? And God only knows, no one knows what's in those storage facilities.
Right. Especially since you've got 9,000 square feet. And if you're keeping the utilities on, then why are you keeping the utilities on for, once again, an empty space? Or is it empty? Once again, we don't know.
Well, I looked in the downstairs window of the Elks Club. It's empty. But you can't tell the windows over at the there's no way you can. I mean, I couldn't look in the ones at the Musselwhite building. Those are shut and blinds are down and all that good stuff when you walk by. But still, it's and it's kind of an eyesore. They're not taken care of. So, for instance, the window sash upstairs on a window has fallen.
I saw
there was clearly a broken window downstairs. I'm thinking that's why the window was ajar, was that it had been broken and replaced, but the glass is laying inside on the floor of the downstairs.
So that means it was broken from the outside.
Correct. There are a whole bunch of they had a bunch of roofing and stuff replaced, but now whoever did the roofing did a crappy job, because the roofing tiles are all over the place. The little shingles and they're hanging down and they're very unsightly. And then you have some fascia that's rotting up there and starting to separate. That's just on the Elks Club. Then when you look at the Musselwhite building, the mold and mildew on those old canopies over those windows is just, it's embarrassing. I mean, that is so embarrassing that when you come up the street, you have the Tennessee Williams building on the right, and then right across the street, they own those 2 buildings, and they look like, what?
Well, I still fail to understand the fascination with a tourism group owning buildings. And they have 4,000 feet over at their offices, 4,000 square feet, which is a huge office.
Yeah.
How many people are in the office during the day? One,
Uh,
two?
2.5. There's two people who are part-time, and
Okay.
then Nancy Carpenter is full-time. Um, one is a receptionist person. The other one, I'm not sure what she does exactly, but she's, they both work. I mean, they're busy over there, but they're not full-time, I don't think.
What is being stored or used in that facility that they need 4,000 square feet? Is there the meeting room, a conference room? Do they have a large area where they have all of these magazines and things? Do they have
No.
printers? Do they have
So
large
when,
servers?
who knows? So when you walk in, it's a great room. It's a reception area, and it has a reception desk, and then it has seating. So it has a sofa, and then it has two little seating areas with armchairs, wingback chairs, and then and that's so they can open up the double doors, and you can see what's going on in the conference room. The interesting thing about the conference room, and the doors are just giant louvered hollow doors. So, I mean, you could technically go lean up and listen to them when they're in closed door session. I don't know why you want to, but the other thing is when you're there, you're not allowed in the actual boardroom area and for an open meeting. Keep this in mind, this is an open meeting. So they put two TVs up in the foyer, in the front room. So they're big flat screen TVs, but they have no sound hooked up to them. So they have an expensive, it was like $200,000 worth of audio visual equipment put in there, but it doesn't work. The only thing that works is the TV. They never turn on the volume, so you have to strain to hear what's being said. And I don't know why. You would think with state of the art, microphones and all that, or with just even some of the money they waste on marketing, they would have somebody come in and fix that and make it work, especially if you spent that much money on it to start with.
They have a technology company that handles all of their things. All they would have to do is put in a ticket to get the audio fixed, because
I don't think Nancy wants the audio fixed, would be my.
Well, exactly. And here's the deal, is that is a government entity. That must be a huge violation of a sunshine law.
Well, get this, for the longest time, until John Brady became the attorney of the board, Ms. Carpenter took the minutes for the meetings.
And see, once again, why is she doing this, and why hasn't anyone called her out? This is not what a director does. She doesn't do her job. She's doing everybody else's job.
Well, I feel like the board is having to manage the manager, which is not what they should be doing. They should be managing the money and the projects.
Yes.
And they're spending all their time managing the manager.
Well, and another portion of it is she doesn't do a good job. They're in the hole.
Well, the foundation definitely is. The foundation's in the hole year after year after year.
Right. And it's my understanding that they well overspend at the board on things that they've overspent on their budget. And part of her job as the director, since she likes to be responsible for everything, guess what? She is responsible for everything. And that includes managing within the budget.
Well, the board, she was, I think I said, was it $60,000 or $80,000 over budget for marketing? I mean, it was 66,000. She was $66,000 over the budget before the last quarter had even started. And so they had to cut her off. They told her she couldn't, no more marketing. No, she couldn't make any more marketing agreements or anything. She was just going willy-nilly, and then she'd come and tell them after the fact. And then she'd already committed the money, so they had to approve it, so they put a stop to that. And that
Where
did
are the contracts?
no, you tell me. I'd love to see some of those marketing contracts.
That board should see those contracts. They
Well,
absolutely
here's
should
an
see those
interesting
contracts.
so one of the board members a couple of years ago, I can't remember, they asked for they wanted transparency. Oh, I know what it was. They wanted to see what checks were written. And the attorney told them that they couldn't see the checks, which was total crap. I mean, because that they are supposed to just blind stamp things. So I mean, it's a good thing they have the new attorney. He's actually really smart and he's very ethical. And but the previous attorney was Chris Hemphill, and he would just tell him whatever Nancy did, he was fine with. So I have no idea why he was that way. I don't know if he didn't want her to be exposed. I don't know if there was some exposure in it for him because he'd been covering for her so long. I don't know, but it's all very questionable. What's your thought on that?
Well, it seems to me that the board puts itself in a very precarious position by not doing their job properly.
Uh-huh.
I would think for their own, you know, confidence, that they would absolutely want to see all of this and not just have her present stuff as though it is a fait accompli and they're just there to nod their heads. I just think that, that absolutely puts them at risk.
Well, we were talking about risk analysis and some of the things that kind of just have been red flags all along the way to you and I as we're reading through this material, just reading through the newspaper articles. What were some of them that stood out to you?
The fact that it seems her typical method of operation is to make decisions in a vacuum without any input from anyone. And when she is confronted, her standard reply is, I don't know why people are so mean. I don't know why people can't get along. I don't know why people this. When she is the one who has caused these things to happen. It seems, I guess the big crux of it is she wants all the glory, but she doesn't want any of the responsibility.
Ooh, that's true. She does want all the glory. Huh.
That's
So,
how it seems to me.
I know we were talking today about the fact that she trademarked all the events and never talked to anybody.
Yes.
The board, I asked board members, they said they never knew until after it hit the newspaper. They were blindsided yet again. It was one more case where they were blindsided.
Right. One more case where she's made a decision without the board, and she's made a decision without the input of what's called the stakeholders. These people who are working these festivals, whether they are the person in charge, whether they're volunteers, she is making decisions for them in their stead and behind their back. And that is not a way to make sure that people want to work with you.
Interesting. So what do you think of some of the ethical issues that are associated with just these same issues? I mean, what are the ethical boundaries in this? Where did
I don't rephrase that. Maybe I can understand it better.
Okay, so a lot of these behaviors they're not illegal. They're ethical issues, and they're a clear setup for future failure of the organization. So, for instance,
yes.
it was unethical for her to invoke these agreements with, let's say, Mississippi State, the $86,000 to Mississippi State. That was an ethical agreement she entered into, because she didn't involve the board. She told them after the fact, after they were already on, unless they were already on the hook to pay for it. The commitment had been made. She'd signed the contract. That's an ethical thing. It's not necessarily illegal, because where do we see any rules? I mean, how do you protect against the ethical issues?
Right. Right. And that is where they don't really have confidence in their director. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
She would have a vote of no confidence. The other thing is, surely there is a mechanism by which, when these things happen, when she enters into contracts and then presents it to them, is there a method that the board and the board's attorney can go to whoever she's made this contract with and say, no, we can't do that. We're not doing that. I wonder if there is a manner of getting out of these, because here's the thing: if they haven't seen these contracts, then where are they financially obligated?
Yeah. I mean,
I just don't see it.
Yeah, I would have pulled the plug on it and told Mississippi State, sorry. She didn't have our permission.
I would too, because if they didn't see these contracts and she's signing these things, and once again, we don't know, but because they're a government entity, there is a procedure and a process to signing contracts, especially if you're using ARPA funds, and especially if a contract is above X number of thousands of dollars. That's very clear. It's on the Mississippi Secretary of State website as to how these ARPA funds are to be used, how contracts are to be negotiated. And if none of that has happened, I don't know how much trouble they would be in. I would think you would be in trouble, but at the very least, you could say the contract is null and void.
Yeah, they probably have to give the money back, and then not get it. They'd be told it'd be a cold day in hell before they got any more.
Right. And also, another piece is the whole, why we see this as a line item on the budget, but it's hard to tell when that money is spent. So if they have this money, it's a line item in the budget, but then when there is an expenditure against that would need to be noted. That would need to be noted in the budget.
Well, I've never seen a budget that was so loosey-goosey. I mean, there's like on the membership line, it says they had $30,000 in memberships. And then
what is that for?
What memberships? We know that only because the new treasurer, Quinn Brislin, grilled her on it. We know that 10,000 of it was to the Mississippi Heritage Hills Association, Area Hills, whatever they're called, to that nonprofit.
Right.
And the one that they give themselves, they give themselves a lot of grants. They do give other people grants as well. I mean, let's be fair. But
right.
She told them that if she didn't pay that $10,000, she couldn't get grants to back from them to the CVB, which we know isn't exactly true. There are others that have applied that are not part of that, and they do get money. And so,
well, and so let's question the wisdom of, why do we have to belong to a group that we have to pay money to belong to get money for a grant that may or may not bear fruit? Because
a grant that we have to match funds to. So if you get a $20,000, you have to come up with another 20 as a matching grant.
Right.
So you pay $10,000 to have to pay another $20,000.
Correct. But if you're not getting, so you spent $40,000, and if you didn't get anything but $10,000 in tourists coming to your area, then you need to stop doing that.
Correct.
Because that's negative.
Correct. Well, it's all just
not hard.
Yeah. Well, as we have said over and over in our meetings, it ain't rocket science.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
if you're not getting anything in return worth your investment, why do you keep doing that? I mean,
Right. And so that is something that she can be measured on to say, does she do the job that she is supposed to do? If they've spent $1 million and on trying to get tourists into the area and they only got $400,000 worth of tourism, then she has not done her job. It's
correct.
very simple.
Well, we
And it's her
have no
job.
tour.
She gets paid a lot of money.
We had no buses this year at Pilgrimage, but also advertising. So, for example, the advertising was let me back out. The graphic designers who were going to do the pilgrimage brochures, because pilgrimage has been pulled out of the CVB, but part of the donation of the CVB to fund the pilgrimage is an in-kind donation that they would do a lot of the marketing. So they agreed to work with the marketing and design guys to come up with some nice brochures. So they kept trying to meet with her. She kept pushing them off, whatever. Busy life, busy, busy. And she finally met with them, and it was like a month before. And they had been trying to meet with her since 3 months before, 2 months before, and then finally 1 month before. So the stuff gets created, it goes off to the printer. Because it was late, they had to pay a premium for the shipping. So the shipping, part of the agreement was that it would go out to all the Visit Mississippi sites around the state. So the plan all along had been to get everything into the Visit Mississippi sites 1 week before the Natchez tour. So when the Natchez pilgrimage happened, I think it's a 2 week event, and the brochures did not get to the state sites, the Visit Mississippi, tourism sites, until it was right before the second week of the Natchez pilgrimage. So they missed a whole week of opportunity of like-minded participants and potential, visitors, because she waited to the last minute to get shit done. I mean, that's
And here's the
reprehensible.
question.
To me,
Why did
that's
she wait to the last?
I don't know. You tell me.
Right.
But
And here's
apparently
the
she has
thing.
a history of that. And it has been alleged that that Musselwhite building is full of brochures that arrived late for other things and never got sent out.
And so this is once again a specific measurement that the director can be dinged on. And I don't see how her lack of attention to the detail of this job, and this job does require attention to detail. I don't see how this inspires confidence in anyone to renew any of her contracts. And another thing I wanted to bring up that I don't see anyone raising a red flag on, although I would hope that accountants and attorneys and the bank and everyone else would. Who keeps $1 million in a checking account?
We've discussed this
Nobody.
over and over. The FDIC does
Right.
not insure $1 million. Even if it's going to be gone
No,
next week, shouldn't it be distributed over a couple of different accounts?
I
Shouldn't
would
part of it
think
be in
at
like
least,
investments, like short-term CDs?
well, I was going to say, for example, they say they receive these grants and this and that and the other, and everything just gets lumped into this one checking account. Is that right? Because I would think that they would want to keep the pots of money separately, especially things like the $75,000 that they've had for 3 years. If they had put that in some sort of a money market or some sort of something, with the bank, whether it was a CD or,
Yeah,
whatever it is
it
that the
could be
bank
making the
would.
money you're going to need, because we know the metal's going to go up
Right,
for that
right. I
statue. It's
mean,
not going to be
they
$75,000 anymore.
correct. And so they have a fiduciary advisor at that bank? Because I would think that the bank itself would be, I would say that they would definitely want to work with the CVB to make sure that the CVB it sounds like that would be a big account in a small, regional bank.
Well,
and that they would want to make sure that they are doing their best by this customer.
well, let's talk about that 75,000 because apparently I've caused a real uproar about bringing that up. What's interesting is after I brought that up, she said it wasn't at the CVB, that it's at the foundation. Fair enough, it's the Tennessee Williams Center, right? Well, when I look at the budget for the Tennessee Williams, that bench, nor that money, nor that project shows up on any of the budgets for the last since 2021. So it would have been late 2021 when the money was donated. So it didn't show up any at all in 2021. It doesn't show up in the budget year. It doesn't show up in 2022, or 2023, which would be the next fiscal year. So if it was donated in that fiscal year, you would think it would show up, and neither does. So there's no mention of the project, there's no mention of the money, there's no mention of any of that. And so all these other projects are mentioned on the budget, and they weren't completed, they haven't even started until this year. So I think either the funds are commingled or they're gone, and I don't know which. But I find that very
I
curious.
would be right. And here's the deal: is in this instance, time is of the essence, because the Columbus Cultural Heritage Foundation is only required per Mississippi law to keep those documents and the bank statements, et cetera, for 3 years. 3 years. And so come 2024, if you're going to go ask for, did they have a transfer of money of $75,000 from one account to the other account, you're not going to be able to find it unless you go to the bank itself.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's going to be a matter of urgency, because if there is no trail of it actually physically leaving account 123 that belongs to CVB and it getting transferred to account 456, which belongs to CCHF.
Yeah, it just seemed a lot of moving around. We know the check existed because there's a photograph of Miss Dixie giving the check. I mean, giving a physical check.
Sure.
So, and it was much.
But where is that money now?
Where is it? And why has there never been any transparency on it until I forced the issue? And then all of a sudden they run to the paper, and there's still no evidence of where it is. It's just, oh, it's fine. I put it with the foundation. It's safe. I promise it's safe. Well, a lot of people make promises,
but we don't know that. We don't know that. There is no assurance of that. And once again, because there is no specific what's going on with this project. Like, there is no monthly update. There is no quarterly update.
Nope.
And if you had board members or, I don't know, interested citizens who volunteered to serve on a project to make this project go forward, believe me, it won't go forward. And that's what's going on, is, in my opinion, they rely on that. They rely on stuff getting lost in the mist of time.
Well, and that's kind of what happened to that other sign, that nobody ever talks about that missing money anymore, do they? The one that disappeared in 2011. And then she turned around and told the attorney she wasn't the director then. Well, not only was she was the interim director, but not only that, she was the person in charge of that project.
So either way, it happened under her purview.
Yes, but so
this is why this is a concern.
Well, my concern is that there's a pattern there, and there's a history of untruth. And you know, she lied to the lawyer, and said that she wasn't the director then. I mean, it was really easy. I just went and pulled the newspaper articles and said, hey, on December 21st of 2010, they announced her being the interim, and the money went missing after April of 2011. Tell me.
Once again, I think you've right, and you've brought up a good point, is that there seems to be these quite splashy project of the Children's Museum, project of the sign in front of the hospital, project of the bench, project of the life-size statue, project of, whatever the project du jour is. And there's a lot of splash and a lot of, once again, front and center and look at what we're doing. And they get all this money and then nothing ever happens.
Well, but what do any of these things have to do with tourism?
And well, that's very true. That's an excellent point. But all of this generates incoming revenue into their bank account, but then the project is never completed, whereupon it becomes outgoing revenue. So, outgoing expenditures. So you don't see that. You see a lot of incoming revenue, but you don't see any outgoing expenditures on these projects.
Well,
and that's a bad pattern.
Well, as my father used to say, all splash, no dash.
True.
So
very, very true.
Yeah, so there's not a lot to show for all that money. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation, and I think we should have more of these. Would you be willing to join me on another one?
I think that sounds like a great idea, especially as things progress and more things come to light.
Agreed. What's interesting is all the there's so many things that people are sharing with me behind the scenes and in private messages and in emails and in phone calls. And I walk in the courthouse and 3 or 4 people stop me. Today I was at the post office, and they're like, "Did you know about this? And did you know about this?" And it's like, oh my gosh. There's so now that we're connecting the dots on our team, it's other people are starting to go, oh my gosh, I remember when this happened, and oh, did you know about this? And so it's a small town. People, you would think that someone in such a high profile position would keep that in mind.
Well, very, very true. And it's been a really good, positive thing for crowdsourcing, is because it's almost like a giant puzzle, and everyone has a piece of the puzzle, and people bring certain strengths, certain perspectives, and certain ways of looking at the puzzle. That is a huge piece of this. Is, there's always a family member. Everyone's over the table working the puzzle. And then, Uncle Dean walks by, and you've looked for 3 hours for that one piece. And he walks by and says, hey, here's this piece. And he puts it right in.
Yeah.
And so we never know when that piece is going to show up. And so everyone, it's been so invaluable, because one link then leads to the other, leads to the other.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel, the thing about having our accidental team has been kind of fun. I love historical research, and I'm really good at digging in old newspapers. And then you're really good at looking at things with a financial eye, with your business acumen. And I have some of that, but it's not nearly as honed as yours. So that's been really positive for the team. And then our counterpart overseas, who is working while we're sleeping. Oh, it is, who couldn't have a better team? I couldn't do this alone. I'd never sleep.
Exactly.
So it's
you would never, you don't sleep anyway much, and you would never sleep for sure. So,
well, that's true. I wake up, I'm excited to the joke is, what's happening next? Out of such a ridiculous circus of events, what could be more ridiculous tomorrow? And right when I think it's, winding down, the next event pops up, the next piece of knowledge, and you're just like going, no, she didn't.
Right. And the deal is it's not just that, it's all of the pieces. And this is a government entity, and this is taxpayer money, and this is for the citizens of Columbus, for all citizens of Columbus.
And we deserve better.
I was going to say, if they don't have confidence in her doing this job, for which she gets paid very well, then a serious look at this And also, I believe a serious way to, I don't want to use the word restructure, but maybe to refine the roles and expectations in this job as it goes forward.
That's actually, those are really good points. One of the things that really seems to keep recurring is, for me, is that why I kind of feel like I'm saying, why am I the only person who figured this out? And I don't think I am the only person. I just think that to me it's frustrating that I see this. To me it's clearly obvious that the breach of ethics, the breach of confidence, the breach of trustworthiness, and it's like it's like, has nobody cared that there's been no tourism in Columbus since about 2013? I mean, why do they keep throwing good money after bad to the tune of several million a year that and get no results? I mean, when does anybody raise the BS flag? And I think it's just reached a critical point. And I mean, I don't think I'm alone in saying this, but I haven't seen. I mean, the people have newspaper ennui, because it was every week there was another article about what was going on at the CVB with the director, Nancy Carpenter. And I think it had gotten to the point where people were like, "Oh my God." It's like, no, she didn't.
Sure. Sure.
And I
And that's
think,
not a good spot to be in. You want people to be excited and proud of their town, and want to show it off to visitors, and feel like they have a group that is equally interested in doing that.
and this town has so much potential, and we actually have good industries that are coming in. And we have the opportunity, if we take pride in what we do, and we choose a new way to go forward and be inclusive, and like invest in ourselves. I mean, really, this is about investing in ourselves. When we invest in ourselves and we invest in our community, instead of watching all our money go out of town to Jackson or Starkville.
Right. Right. Very true. Very true.
Anyways, thank you so much. And I look forward to a few more discussions like this. I want to thank our listeners for coming to listen in on the Tombigbee Tales podcast and a team meeting. And I hope to have you at our next meeting. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.